Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whichever time of day it is when you are watching this. I appreciate you joining in and watching to get this valuable information to make sure your son or daughter has a successful fall sports experience here at Millennium High School. So, welcome to the 2022-23 Millennium High School Athletics Fall Sports Parent Meeting. As I said before, there will be some valuable information provided here to make sure we have a successful season. I'd like to start by introducing myself. My name is Mr. Gordillo. Or Mr. G. I am the assistant principal and athletic director here at Millennium High School, so I oversee all of our athletic programs. This is my 8th year here at Millennium High School, the 7th as the athletic director, and prior to that, I was assistant principal and athletic director at another school here in the West Valley. Um, Congratulations on your son or daughter making one of our fall sports teams. I know that our fall sports programs are extremely competitive, and we get a number of students to try out. And unfortunately, not all of them are able to make one of our teams. So it's no small task that your son or daughter has. So congratulations. I will move through this meeting as swiftly as I can to get you information that you will need to make sure your son or daughter has a successful fall sports experience. Um, so I would like to first begin by introducing two new people to our campus. Those of you that have been here the past several years were familiar with JD Burgess being our athletic trainer, and JD has moved on to another school. And we're fortunate to welcome our new trainers here. So I will let them introduce themselves to you.
Hi, I'm Cassie Barlow. I'm the sports medicine instructor and athletic trainer here at Millennium. Hi, my name is Carly Walkup. I am the athletic trainer here at Millennium. And I just kind of wanted to go into this video giving you a brief description of what Cassie and I both do here. So we are both certified and licensed athletic trainers. We are here to provide care for your athletes. We're also here for prevention and injury education aspects. So as athletic trainers, we work directly under a doctor. Under doctor's orders to provide care for your athletes. And my role, I'm hired through Banner Sports Medicine, so I have connections with all of the Banner Health departments, and we have a team doctor that works with our school specifically. So it makes appointments and referrals a little bit easier. I'm going to pass back on to Cassie. All right, guys. So just a couple things that we wanted to cover with you guys, so that way we're all on the same page for the benefit of your athletes and have a successful year this year. So a couple things. We need your help when your athlete gets hurt or injured, and letting us know what's going on. Obviously, as mom and dad, you guys have your prerogative to go take your children to go see a doctor and get x-rays and stuff like that. We're just asking that you keep us in the loop as far as what's going on, so that we can better help and be a support for you and your athlete. With that, when they do go to any type of doctor, we do need proper documentation in order to allow them to return to play. This documentation needs to be very specific. We need to know that if the athlete is restricted, what are their restrictions? If they're cleared, what are they cleared to do? A blanket statement of they are able to return to sport is not going to be beneficial for us in being able to support you guys the best that we can. So as specific as you can get the note to be, the easier transition back into sport is there. Um, and then another thing just to kind of keep in mind, especially during like live events and games, is that we are here ultimately for the protection and safety of your athletes. So if something were to happen, please give us our time to evaluate, assess the situation, and act accordingly. So just pause when something happens. Let us do our job and why we're here. And then of course we'll let you be mom and dad and come and support and be with your athlete after that and let you know what's going on. So we just ask that you give us our time and our willing to do what we do best. And again, all for the benefit of your athlete. So, to jump back in there in terms of protecting and caring for your athlete, one thing we do implement here for all of our contact sports is impact testing. So impact testing is a software we use to collect data. We use it for baseline, and we also use it should your child sustain an injury that could potentially have caused a concussion. We use the data there to determine our return to play protocol, if we need to refer them to specialists. So I just want to ask to bear with us while we get our impact testing scheduled for all of our teams here. But that's something that's going to be done again for all new athletes and then every 2 years. And then I had one more announcement, kind of quick reminder to throw in there. Last year with the COVID protocols, it was required that every athlete brings their own water bottle to practices and events, and we are still carrying that out. Sorry, we're still carrying that out this year. So I just wanted to be a quick reminder that water bottles are the responsibility of each athlete. We do have water provided to them so they can refill their water bottles, but for the safety of everyone, we're still not sharing. So that's all Cassie and I had for you tonight. So it's nice to meet you guys, and we look forward to working with you all.
And there should be a handout coming to you guys with some more information. If you do ever have questions or concerns, please reach out to us. We're here to support you guys and let us know the best way that we can do that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm
Sorry about that. I'd like to follow up on a few things that Cassie and Carly said. First, give you a little bit more background on both of them. We're extremely fortunate to hire Cassie. We stole her away from actually a school that we play quite a bit in sports, Sunrise Mountain. She's been there for a number of years and has joined us as both a teacher and as a trainer. And in Carly's case, she has moved out here from California to join, Banner specifically to be a full-time trainer here with us. So we're really excited about both of them. Your sons and daughters are in great hands. As I always say, if your son or daughter receives any type of injury, please give our trainers the opportunity to evaluate them, kind of guide you in the right direction. That's what they do. They're phenomenal at it. And you can always send your son or daughter to any doctor that you want to see. We would never tell you you have to see this person or that person, but they're also very connected and aware of who are considered the best in what they do in the West Valley and the Valley period, and can often help guide you. And this person will be great to see for this type of injury or that type of injury, as well as get your son or daughter in an expedited manner, so they're not waiting to be seen by someone. So again, encourage you to have your son or daughter checked out and evaluated by them first, so that we can help guide you and then keep them in the loop along the way. The return to play is always the one we get a lot of questions on. So I want to reiterate what they said and elaborate a little bit. Your son or daughter is injured and is seen by a physician, whether that's the emergency room or their primary care doctor or an orthopedic, whichever it may be. Once they're seen by them, we cannot clear them to return to participating in practices or training or games until we receive written clearance from the same doctor that they were evaluated by. So if you go to the emergency room and it's Dr. Johnson, and they say, hey, Johnny can't practice for 2 weeks, then at the conclusion of 2 weeks, we need a same written clearance from Dr. Johnson saying that Johnny may now return to playing sports with full clearance. Absent that, we cannot clear them to return to play. Okay, that written clearance would be sent to Cassie and Carly as well as myself, so that we can clear your son or daughter return to play. Now, please understand that just the doctor's written clearance alone doesn't mean that they're immediately going to return. Our athletic trainers, are the final say on when a student athlete is cleared to return. Sometimes they will hold a student athlete out a little bit longer than what the doctor has said, simply because they don't feel comfortable or they think it's in the student athlete's best interest to wait longer or complete some additional tasks. That's never from a place of we're just looking to hold your son or daughter out longer or you want them to miss games or anything like that. There's no negative intention. So if you do run across that, please understand that all the decisions they make are what they think is in the best interest of your son or daughter and all of our student athletes. Okay. I want to share with you the contact information
Cassie
for
Barlow,
the trainers.
sports
That wasn't
medicine
supposed to
instructor
happen.
and athletic trainer here.
Apologize. All right. There we go. So you can see Cassie's email there up top. Let me move my face. There we go. And then Carly's information there as well. I'm not sure why I look blue. The phone number here on campus for them is 623-932-7200, extension 2039. That is a voicemail that they have access to if they're not in the office available at that time. As Cassie mentioned, there is a parent handout with additional information as well as this contact information that coaches will be sending out to you. That's being finalized. And then once rosters are complete, that information will be sent out to you. And next, I'd like to talk about academic eligibility. Okay, this is extremely important. Um, your son or daughter is a student athlete. Student comes before athlete for a reason. You need to be a successful student in order to be an athlete here at Millennium High School. Okay, there's two different parts to the academic eligibility policy in our district. This isn't Millennium High School's policy. This is the Agua Fria Union High School District policy, and so all of our schools fall under the exact same requirements. So the first part of the academic eligibility policy is the credits earned component, meaning that each grade level, a student has to have earned a certain number of credits in order to be eligible to compete in athletics. If they are deficient of that, they would not be able to compete. We'll talk a little bit about that. But I want to go through each grade level so you're aware based on what grade level your son or daughter is in as to how many credits they need to have earned. So freshmen, obviously, they've just gotten to our campus, have not had the opportunity to earn any credits. So there's no credits earned requirement for freshmen. Um, However, once a student is a sophomore, they have to have earned at least 4 credits. A junior has to have earned at least 10 credits, and a senior has to have earned at least 16 credits. Again, freshmen, no credits earned requirement. Sophomores have to have earned at least 4 credits. Juniors have to have earned at least 10 credits. Seniors have to have earned at least 16 credits. These are not arbitrary numbers that were just pulled out of a hat, or this number sounds cool, or we like even numbers. Um, those are the minimum number of credits they have to have achieved in order to be on track to graduate. Okay, so that if they have achieved at least that number of credits for their grade level, then they're on track to graduate in 4 years. We love having all of your sons and daughters here at Millennium High School, but the ultimate goal is to get them to leave Millennium High School to move on to their next part of their journey in life. And this is what's required in order for them to get there. If a student athlete is deficient in credits, they will be ineligible to participate in athletics until they meet that requirement. So, for example, if a sophomore only has earned 3 credits, they would be considered academically ineligible to participate in any athletics until they have received at least 4 credits. Okay. If you find yourself in that position, one, you'll be notified. We go through the roster and check each student athlete's credits earned. Once the rosters are finalized, we notify the student and family if they are credit deficient, as well as the counselor. Would encourage you to get with the counselors to then draft some sort of a plan to get them back on track. There are opportunities to retrieve credits. There is a one-time waiver a student can apply for if they are credit deficient. So if your student athlete is credit deficient one time in their 4 years at Millennium High School, they can complete a waiver with their counselor. So the waiver would include a plan to get them back on track to graduate on time. That plan then would be submitted to the principal to review, and ultimately the principal would make the decision on whether to approve the waiver or not. From my experience, and again, this is obviously they're all looked at on a case by case basis, but from my experience, it's usually upperclassmen, seniors, sometimes juniors that receive a waiver. Applying for a waiver does not automatically mean that it's going to be granted. It is again looked at on a case by case basis, so please be aware of that. The second part of the credits earned, of the academic eligibility policy is grades. So grades on progress reports and report cards determine a student's academic eligibility. So every 4.5 weeks is an official grading period here in our district and at our school. So every 4.5 weeks, that means there's either a progress report or there's a report card. A student must be passing all classes when at the end of a grading period in order to be eligible. Okay, so if they have 1F or more, they become academically ineligible for a minimum of 1 week. At the semester, which doesn't apply to fall sports, but at the semester it would be 3 weeks. But so let's focus on fall. It's a minimum of 1 week. So the way that would work is grades come out on a Friday, for example. Okay. So grades come out, your son or daughter has an F. They automatically become academically ineligible beginning Saturday, and then they are ineligible all the way through the following Friday. That Friday, we will recheck their grades. If they are passing at that point, then they regain eligibility that Saturday. So it is a 1 week sit period beginning on a Saturday, and then they could regain eligibility on a Saturday. If when we recheck grades on the following Friday, if they are still failing class or classes, then they remain academically ineligible until those grades are passing. We will automatically check them that Friday. After that, if they're still academically ineligible, it becomes their responsibility to inform me once they are passing their classes so that I can verify and then notify coaches that they have regained eligibility. Again, it becomes their responsibility to notify me. So, a few things I want to talk about on here. You will be notified via email. So you, both your son and daughter, son or daughter, and parents will receive an email if they are academically ineligible. Once they have regained eligibility, you will also receive an email stating that you have regained academic eligibility. Okay. Now, every time there's an official grading period, something comes up where people say, I shouldn't be ineligible, I'm passing that class. Or whatever the situation may say. The first person to contact is the teacher of that class. Okay. If you contact me, I'm going to redirect you to the teacher of that class. Okay. I would ask that your son or daughter contacts that teacher first, and then you can follow up if the situation is not resolved from there. Teachers are the ones that control the grade book that ultimately determine what a student athlete's grade is in a grade book. And for all students, that's the case. Um, I do not interfere in that. Coaches do not interfere in that. We, if the teacher says this is the grade that they've earned, that's what we do. So if you believe there's a mistake or an error, please contact the teacher to address it. You can also contact a counselor of your son or daughter, as we try to keep them informed as well on academic matters. Okay. The only way that a student who had a failing grade could be changed to make eligible is if there was some sort of an error and the wrong grade was submitted. So the policy says whatever a student athlete's grade was or was supposed to be at the time grades are due is what determines the eligibility. What we get a lot of is grades are due, let's say on Thursday by midnight, and an F was submitted because they were failing. And then Friday they come and turn in work, and then their grade is up to passing, and the student athlete says, "Oh no, I'm passing. I shouldn't have F." Well, if that work was turned in after the grading period, as in the example I just stated, then yes, they would be ineligible and would have to wait a week. Okay, that covers our academic eligibility policy. Like to move on to some other items. Transportation. This is always a hot topic. Okay, and even more so during the pandemic, rightfully so. So all student athletes are required to ride to and from games or matches on school-provided transportation. That is a requirement of our district. Um, it's a great way for student athletes and teams to bond. Some of the best experiences in high school sports are the bus rides, the journeys, that time spent together. So it's important that you understand that that will be the expectation. We realized during a pandemic that some people feel uncomfortable with their son or daughter riding on a bus with other people in an enclosed space. Completely understandable. So there is a waiver if you are someone who feels uncomfortable because of COVID uh, and the pandemic, allowing your son or daughter to ride on a bus in an enclosed space. But I want to make a few points about that. One, this waiver is specifically for that reason. Okay, it is not a waiver that is for, hey, we've got a birthday party that we need to get to, or we want to take them to dinner after the game, or the school that we play at is really closer to my house, so we'd like to pick them up. Those aren't reasons for a waiver. Those There's no opportunity to do that. If you do sign the waiver, that is stating that you're forfeiting school provided transportation for the entire season. It's not a pick and choose situation. So if you sign that saying, "Hey, we want to have the waiver, so our son or daughter we can take them to the games because we don't feel comfortable," then that's for every game. So it's not, "Hey, for the close games we're going to do that," but if it's far, you're going to Tucson or the East Side, uh, then we're okay with them riding school provided transportation. The moment that waiver is submitted, they'll not be allowed on school provided transportation. In addition to that, if you do complete that waiver and it is approved, you don't get to just drop your son or daughter off at the game or the match or the meet when you want and pick them up when you want. They are still required to arrive the same time as the rest of the team, and they are required to leave the same time as the rest of the team. So the coach would inform you, this is our departure time for the bus, this is our expected arrival time. You would be required to meet them there at that time, inform the coach that that your son or daughter is there, so that they're aware, they can supervise them. Same thing at pickup. The coach would tell you what time to pick them up, the expected end of the game or match or departure time. You would need to inform the coach that you are now taking your son or daughter from the game. We're required to supervise students at all times. When you just drop your son or daughter off at different times than when the team arrives, or pick them up at different times when the team arrives, that becomes a challenge for a coach to know where they're at, if they got there, if they didn't get there. And that is the reason for that. So, again, if you complete the waiver, it is for purposes of the pandemic. In addition to that, that would be for all games, matches, or meets. And you still would be required to drop them off and pick them up at the time that the coach gives you. Thank you for your adherence to that. Next, I'd like to talk about participation fees. So, those of you that were with us last year, our district chose to waive the student participation fee for athletics and extracurricular activities, which was awesome. However, unfortunately, this year participation fees have returned. So what that means is that for each sport, a student athlete is required to pay $100 participation fee in order to participate. If you qualify for free or reduced lunch, that is a $50 participation fee. Participation fee can be paid in the bookstore. It can also be paid online. Once the roster for your son or daughter sport is complete, the bookstore will then begin sending emails to the student athlete as well as yourself that gives you instructions on how to make payment. Most people choose to pay online just because it's quick and it's easy and saves them a trip. But again, that email will have instructions on how to do both, whether it's in person or whether it's online. That participation fee is required to be paid before the first game. If it is not paid before the first game, unfortunately, your son or daughter will be ineligible to participate until the fee has been paid. Okay, so again, due before the first game, you will receive an email with instructions. It is $100 per sport or $50 if you qualify for free or reduced lunch. Um, Few things that come up each year is attendance for practices and game days, where a student athlete may miss part of the day or all of the day, and how does that impact their ability to participate on that day? So there is a district policy as well as AIA policy that says a student athlete must be in school for at least half of the day in order to be eligible to participate in practices and in games. So if a student athlete is absent from school, they should not be at practice, and they won't be allowed to play in games. They need to be in school for at least half of the day. So if they have 6 classes, that means they need to attend at least 3 classes in order to be eligible to participate. If you have extenuating circumstances that causes your student athlete to miss, for example, a funeral, things of that nature, that's understandable. Please contact myself to inform me, and we can discuss, whether they'd be able to participate from there. Again, that's extenuating circumstances, unforeseen circumstances, things of that nature. Okay, so thank you. Next, I want to talk about the code of conduct. So, uh, our code of conduct. So when we're doing register my athlete and rushing to get cleared in time to try out, sometimes we don't read everything, in detail. As you were signing off on register my athlete, there is an athletic code of conduct for students in there. We take that code of conduct seriously. I would encourage you to go through with your son or daughter and read through that code of conduct so you understand the expectations of student athletes here at Millennium High School. Um, I think we have some amazing students here and we have some amazing student athletes here. But I also realize that they are teenagers and sometimes they may not make the best decision. And sometimes when we don't make the best decision, there are some consequences for those actions. So reading the code of conduct will help them understand that expectation. There are things, choices that could be made that could lead to your student athlete no longer being a member of the team for the duration of that season. Some of those things that are automatics removal from the team would be fights, acts of aggression, assaults, physical assaults. What comes up a lot is where they were defending themselves. So um, once your son or daughter participates in a fight, doesn't matter who threw the first punch or who pushed first or any of that. It's considered mutual combat by district policy, and they would be held accountable for that. Um, People often say, "Well, why would you remove them from fighting?" Um, Athletics is intense competition. If a student has demonstrated the inability to restrain from responding physically in situations, we don't want to put them into heightened situation that could lead to that same thing happening where they are representing our school, could be on somebody else's campus, or could be on our campus. So they would be removed for the remainder of that season. There is a process that we go through that would be explained at that time, but it's also outlined in that code of conduct that I've encouraged you to read. Other things, possession of drugs or use of drugs, um, those are also automatic removals from a team. We don't, our student athletes should not be using drugs, should not be possessing drugs. If they do, they will be removed from the team for the duration of that season. Now, one of the biggest epidemics across the nation, it's not unique to Millennium High School, it's everywhere, is vaping. There's two types of vaping. Okay, there is the tobacco-based or nicotine-based vaping, and then there is marijuana wax vaping. Marijuana wax is a drug, it is classified as a narcotic, and that would fall under what I just mentioned earlier, possession or use of drugs being removed from the team. If they have a tobacco-based, nicotine-based, the first offense would involve a suspension from a number of games. Second offense would be removal from it. Okay. There are obviously other things that could come up that could cause removal from a team that we would address on a case-by-case basis. Possession, use of alcohol also is grounds for removal from a team. So please communicate with your son or daughter these expectations and read through the code of conduct. I hope nobody is in that situation and that does not happen, but I want to make sure that we're all aware of those expectations that we have. Okay. So next is COVID return to play policy. So those of you that have been in high school, whether it's here or somewhere else, the last several years, know that athletics has been handled completely differently, and each year something's changing in regards to COVID. So I want to give you kind of where we're at right now as a district and with the AIA to make sure you understand how to handle the situation. So if your son or daughter were to test positive for COVID, okay, test positive for COVID, you need to inform the coach and or myself of this. They would be required to not participate in athletics for 10 days. So it is 10 days where they can't practice, they can't train, they can't play in games. And then at the conclusion of the 10 days, they need to either complete the return to play protocol with our athletic trainers, or your family has the option to sign a waiver waiving the return to play. One of those two things has to happen in order for them to be cleared after 10 days. But right now, it is 10 days that they have to be removed from the sport until they complete that 10 days and then either complete the waiver or the return to play protocol. If your son or daughter tests positive, I will send you an email with detailed instructions on that as well as the forms so that you're aware you have everything. Um, Now, we ask that you're honest and please report when they are positive. It does impact other people. If we have enough, a spread that breaks out in a team, that could cause the team to shut down, not have enough people to play games. That could impact playoffs participation because you teams have to participate in a certain number of games in order to be eligible for playoffs. So we don't want anyone to miss time or miss games. I understand that. I'm a parent myself, but we do ask that you inform us so that we can address it properly. Keep your son or daughter safe as well as keep others safe. Not saying anyone here would do that, but you do hear stories of, hey, just don't say anything. And from my experience, when that happens, it becomes a bigger situation than it would have been. And we don't want to deal with that. And we also don't want to have any consequences for people not being truthful and it impacting others. So again, 10 days that they sit out from the sport and either the waiver completed or the return to play protocol completed with the athletic trainers. And that is your choice, which of those two you decide to do. Lastly, or two more things. All right. So next is transfers. If your son or daughter is a transfer, meaning that they were at a different high school last year or sometime during the last school year, they transferred into Millennium High School, they're classified as a transfer by the AIA. The AIA has a transfer policy that states that if a student athlete transfers from one school to the other, they are automatically ineligible for the first 50% of the season for any sport that they played in the previous 12 months. So, whatever sport they played at the previous school, they are automatically ineligible for the first 50% of the season for that sport or sports. If it is a second transfer, so your son or daughter has transferred more than once. So they've attended, they were started at one high school, transferred to a different high school, and now have transferred to us. They're considered a multi-transfer student, and they are ineligible for 1 year for any sports that they played at the previous schools. There is a 550 transfer form that has to be completed, and that ultimately tells the schools what how the transfer rule applies to them. So what we do is when we check the rosters for each student athlete, we determine if they're a transfer or not, and then we verify if they have completed the 550 form or not. If not, I will contact the student, give them instructions on how to complete it, and then we will ultimately notify both the student athlete, the parent, and the coach of how the transfer status applies and when they would be eligible. People always say, well, is there any way around that? Or I have a hardship. So that our definition of a hardship and the AIA's defined definition of a hardship are usually different. A hardship is not something that is just given. It is extremely hard to get. It has to meet certain requirements. We will not just send anyone to a hardship hearing. Documentation has to be provided for what the potential hardship is. There's deadlines on when that has to be completed. And then there is a committee hearing where you, your family, myself would have to attend a hearing to present our hardship. And ultimately, a committee would make a decision. Again, happy to meet with someone if they believe they have a hardship, but we're very honest about whether or not it meets the definition of a hardship, and we will not send someone to a hardship appeal hearing if it does not fall into the grounds of a hardship. Okay, so if your son or daughter is a transfer, please be on the lookout. If you know, hey, I don't know what a 550 is, I don't think we've done that, you can go on to aiaonline.org and look for transfer form, click on that. It's all digital and you can complete that and take maybe 5 minutes to complete. Last thing I want to talk about is the chain of command. If you have some questions, concerns regarding your son or daughter's team that they are on, um, listen, we're all human, we're all parents. We all have opinions on things, ideas on things, maybe different philosophies on things. First thing I want to tell you is that we have what I believe are the best coaches in the valley, and our teams are very successful as a result, and our student athletes have a great experience as a result. They are experts in what they do, and we empower them to do that. If you have a question or comment about your son or daughter's playing time, position, status, those types of things, contact the coach via email. Please do not show up before practice, before a game, after a game. That's not the appropriate time to address concerns. Please email them to request a meeting or a phone call where you can relay your concerns. Chain of command should be your son or daughter talks to the coach first. Okay, we want to make sure that they're able to communicate with the coach whatever questions or concerns that they have. If after that you feel like it hasn't been addressed, then contact the coach via email to request a phone call or a meeting. Okay. If it's regarding playing time, style of play, position, philosophy, all of that, I don't meet with parents about that. Again, we hire coaches that we believe in and we empower them to do that job. Okay. So if you contact me regarding playing time or things of that nature, I'm not going to meet with you. I'm going to refer you back to the coach. However, if you if you feel like your son or daughter is being disrespected, harassed, those types of things, not treated right, contact me immediately and I'm happy to launch an investigation into that and then follow up with you. Okay, those would be reasons to contact me regarding that. The other reasons, the stuff, and the reason for that is I'm not at every practice, I'm not at every game. I try to be as visible as I can. I communicate with coaches on a daily basis, weekly basis. We're constantly communicating about what's happening in the program or not happening in the program. However, I'm not at every practice and every game, so I can't tell you why your son or daughter is playing a specific position or why they're not getting a certain amount of playing time. That would be a conversation that the coach could have and could answer for you. Um, and in saying that, allow our coaches the opportunity to coach, allow them time to resolve any situations that may come up. I believe in them. I think their track record is one that's proven their abilities, and so let's support them. Let's encourage them. When at home, student athletes hear parents or guardians or family members bashing a coach or saying those things, and then they hear a different message from the coach. That's a tough situation for a student athlete to be in because obviously they love their parents, want to please their parents, and want to, they're not going to ignore their parents, obviously. And then you have a coach where hey, I need to show this coach that I'm going to do what needs to be done, and prove to them. So really, that creates a stressful situation for a student athlete. Again, everybody's entitled to their own opinions. I'm certainly not saying that. I would just say be conscious of the position it puts a student athlete in when we're verbalizing those things to a student and give our coaches the opportunity to explain why they do things and rectify any potential situation that may be out there. Again, our programs are extremely competitive. Some sports had over 100 and something student athletes try out for 40 spots that were given out. And so those 40 kids are all fighting for playing time, and not everyone's going to get the same amount of playing time. High school is competitive. It's different than middle school, club ball, rec ball. It's completely different. Okay. So, last thing, refs, officials. I understand again that we're not going to like all calls. I'm a competitive person. Um, let the coach handle that. Let the coach have those conversations with the referee. Let's please refrain from shouting stuff at officials from the stands. Ultimately, that doesn't help our team. That's not going to make them say, all right, well, let me give them some different calls or better calls. There's a few things in sports that are guaranteed. Okay. Players are going to make mistakes, coaches are going to make mistakes, and officials are going to make mistakes. They're human. It's going to happen. We have to accept that and understand that we don't have control over what they do. A coach has, um, they have some ways that they can communicate with officials. We have some ways where we can communicate with the head of officials. Let us do that and handle that. Please do not heckle referees. Please do not approach referees. Please do not be waiting for referees somewhere. We've been blessed in Millennium High School where we are not one of those schools that has had parents going after officials, attacking officials. We want to keep it that way. That behavior will not be tolerated here at Millennium High School or in our district. Okay. So we want everybody to be able to watch their sons or daughters play all their games. And I don't want a situation to happen that leads to where that opportunity is no longer allowed as a result. Having said that, super excited to see all your sons or daughters in action. Excited to see you guys in the stands at the games. Please feel free to stop by and say hi. Would love to meet you. So I wish you guys the best of luck this season and your sons or daughters the best of luck. Fear the roar. Go Tigers.